Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Simon Barrett. I am a lover of art, and art comes in many genres. One that is somewhat overlooked is stained glass. Many people think of it just as that stuff you find in old churches. Not so. Stained glass can be found in many places: libraries, fire stations, and private homes. In the Los Angeles region, one of the finest stained glass artists is Mark Levy. Mark, welcome to the program.
Good morning, Simon. Thank you for having me.
Also joining us today is my good friend, Los Angeles-based attorney, Mannie Barling. Mannie, welcome.
Well, good morning, Simon.
Obviously, the question that is going to be on listeners' minds is, why is Mannie here? He doesn't seem to have a great deal to do with stained glass. You're wrong. I will not prolong the suspense. Mannie has some of Mark's works in his house. But the question I have, Mannie, is why did you include stained glass in your house?
I think stained glass is the best way to bring nature and the outside into your home. Mark designed this beautiful window that's above my front door that faces east, and every morning the sun rises and it flashes through that window, and I walk from my bedroom to my kitchen. My marble floor is flooded with these beautiful colors, red, you name it. And every morning I walk by it, I take a deep breath, and I thank him often for it because it's just so outstanding to look at. So if you want a light and you want to air your place and you want to bring something of nature that's beautiful, Mark designs probably the most beautiful windows I've ever seen in my life.
Mark, that sounds like a compliment, if ever I heard one.
It does sound like a compliment, and I hope I don't get a bill in the mail for the kind things that Mannie just said about me.
What a great idea. No, I'm a lawyer at heart. I can't help it. I'm going to send your bill now.
Right. Is it still clocked in 6-minute increments?
Oh, why so much? No. No, but no, it's hard not to. And the window I'm talking about, I looked at the date, Mark. You installed it actually 12 years ago on Labor Day, May 30th. I checked on my calendar, and it is just as beautiful today. I've never had a leak. I've never had a seepage. I've never had a spider crawl through any of the sides, and it really is just absolutely wonderful.
That's really nice of you to say, Mannie. And, I think one of the things that you're describing is one of the things that I've always said about the art form of stained glass, whether it's modern or traditional, and whether it's in an office building or a house or a library, is it celebrates light. It celebrates light in a way that few mediums can, because the window is vitalized and engaged and enhanced by the sun, and as it moves through the horizon, you get an interactive piece of artwork that is never the same depending on the time of day.
It's very accurate. I agree. And Mark, when I installed them, I know a fair amount about stained glass windows. I had never realized the extent to which that really applied. And I think that's the real gift, Simon, for anybody who wants to have a stained glass window or thinks about it, is that it keeps giving every single day something a little bit different.
I've talked to Mark about that aspect. Indeed, depending on where the sun is, depending on the time of year, it always looks different. And I think it gives some real, not just color, but warmth to a room.
Well, I think that has a lot to do with the color, Simon. One of the joys of doing the windows is I went over to Mark's home, and we sat down in his garage, and we went through piles of glass. You know, the artist in me Mark's probably chuckling, I just can't resist participating. But the joy of looking at it, my wife Ashley, who Simon knows quite well, felt the same way. We left there just in awe, looking at all the color and the different things, and watching how they lit up in the sun. It's an extraordinary experience.
Indeed. Now, 12 years ago, that would be,
2002.
Right. Now,
math isn't big in British schools, right?
Right. As I recall, you moved into this new house directly as a result of the Northridge earthquake.
No, not exactly. We lost a home in Santa Monica in the quake, and we moved to Brentwood, rented a house for a while we settled the insurance claims, and by the time they were done, we started looking for a home. And frankly, I couldn't find anything I liked in Brentwood, so I said to my wife, I want to go back to my roots, and I moved back to where I was born and raised, the San Fernando Valley. And I looked and picked in a neighborhood I love called Tarzana, which is next to Encino, and people around the country generally know where Encino is because of the movies Encino Man and the rest of them. And probably every TV show makes some reference to Encino once in a while. But it's a quiet neighborhood with lots of sun and lots of direct light where you can have these. I think if you live in areas where you don't have that much exposure, it's not as much of a motivation. But it still should be. Anyway.
Okay. Piece of trivia, Manny. Why is it called Tarzana?
Well, it was named after Tarzan. The Edgar Rice Burroughs, who wrote Tarzan, founded Tarzana, which is along Ventura Boulevard next to Reseda. And I live in an area that he and Harrison Gray Otis, who was a former Civil War general who founded the L.A. Times, planted trees more than 100 years ago. So all the trees in our neighborhood are more than 100 years old, all planted by the founder of the L.A. Times and, of course, the legendary Harrison Gray Otis. But so, the Tarzan Museum is actually a mile and a half away from me. And Danny Burroughs died recently. I don't know who's running it now, but for years you could walk in there and see his original manuscripts. I don't know if you've ever done that, Mark.
I have not, and I'm a native Southern Californian, so I probably should have done that by now, but I have not.
Yeah. Ironically,
Okay.
Mark and I grew up in the same neighborhood.
How did the pair of you meet?
A friend of ours introduced us, right, Mark?
Yes, he, a gentleman who sells insurance, put me in touch with Mannie, and we began with the front door, the window above the front door. Then we did two little inserts in his front doors to match. And then as Mannie began remodeling and doing more of his home, we found other areas where we ended up doing very, very contemporary and modern stained glass, which most people don't think of as stained glass, where his entryway window that he's been describing is very traditional.
Obviously, visual doesn't work well on the radio, but I will get some pictures online later. Now, there's lots of different styles of stained glass. There's contemporary, there's modern, there's traditional. Mannie, how did you decide on the design? Was it a tortuous deal?
No, not at all. I did not go into this intending to do something more modern. Sometimes you just see something that is so beautiful, it just lights you up, and that's what happened when I saw some of Mark's modern windows. Mark's does a design of circular rainbow colors that I've been trying to find a place in my home to install that particular window for as long as I can remember, and I can't figure out where to put it. And the beauty of it, and the beauty again, is the light it emits. One of the things that we haven't really discussed is Mark's extraordinary ability to pick colored glass. I mean, sometimes people use, believe me, I've looked at a lot of other stained glass makers, and I would look at their work, and they're just the traditional, normal pieces of glass. With Mark, he comes up and buys these exotic pieces that just make you go, wow. And that's what happened. I was so blown away by what I saw that I basically decided I would go with that style, which I had intended originally to be contemporary.
Mark, Mannie mentioned your glass. Now, obviously, you don't want to give away any trade secrets, but give us an idea on the kinds of places that you look for exotic glass.
One of the things is that I always try with my modern and contemporary works, I try to have the designs as much driven by the glass as I do by the actual artwork. So that, because when I work with glass, I like to work with hand-blown glass, which is still made the old-fashioned way by glass blowers, and no two sheets of glass are alike in that process. So each one is essentially a painting in glass. So by scouring different locations and traveling through Europe and acquiring glass there, I've managed to put together a pretty extensive library, if you will, of different types of glass from all over the world. And then when I start working on a design, at the inception stage when I'm working on the design, I'm also thinking about what kind of glass I want to use so that not only does the piece interact with the sun and it celebrates light, but you end up actually painting with the glass, not with a brush stroke and paints, but by the nuances and the motion and the color in these individual pieces of glass.
Obviously, windows come in various sizes. Do you have a portfolio of design, shall we say? That can be made larger or smaller depending on the physical requirement?
Well, all of my work is signed and dated so that each one of my clients is getting an original piece. I don't duplicate any of my work, but if someone sees something of mine that they like in my online portfolios or in person, then I can plan a design to suit whatever space they have that's based on the design that they like. But in that fashion, I know that everybody who gets a window from me has an original that they're not going to see duplicated any other place by myself.
Wow, that sounds fairly specialized. It's not something you're going to find at your regular local glass company.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's my goal. My goal is to work with a client to create something. And Mannie's a perfect example. Mannie's got a very, very definite program and style about what he likes, and I like my work to be able to bring to my client something that gives them something for their home or their office or wherever it is that satisfies their desire for something artistic and creative, but also brings something to them that they're not going to generally find anyplace else.
Mannie, you sent me a photograph of one of the pieces, and I believe it has to be an interior piece, and it's just gorgeous the way it reflects off the counter and the ceiling and the walls. Tell us a little bit about that particular one.
Well, I thought I sent you two, and I'm not sure because they all do that. Well, let me preface this. When you pick these out, they're once in a lifetime. They just last forever. So as Mark points out, he tries to make this fit what people like because you're going to look at it for a long, long time. And to describe it is that, and particularly the one that's in the bathroom next to my office, Mark, that one is interesting because it gets enough of the morning sun that it flashes on an angle on the wall. So if you walk in that bathroom, you can actually see the print of the stained glass window reflected like a movie reflection on the wall. And that is just really outstanding. And those are the things that are hard to describe to people. It's like, I've seen people with who had beautiful lights they like to turn on and the light captivated them. Well, every day this gives you a different look and a different light. And what I did is a little bit different, and Mark does a lot of this. I had a particular window and size that I wanted to fit. So we designed that window to fit an opening. In another case, we actually designed the window before we built that rear back bathroom, Mark, remember?
Right.
And then what we did is then we built the wall to fit the window. So you can either fit a spot or you can create your spot and then do something to fit it. So there are so many options and choices that it's indescribable. It really is.
I'm pretty certain that it's the bathroom photograph.
Well, I have two of them.
Okay. It's just gorgeous.
Yeah, they all are.
Yeah, in fact, when I looked at the picture you sent, I was a little confused. There's the window, but there's the window on the counter. There's the window on the walls. Right? There's the window everywhere. Yeah, my first thought was, my goodness, Mannie is really good with Photoshop.
No, Mannie's a very good designer, which shocks everybody, and so nobody thinks I'm reaching for it. I spent 17 years studying art as a child. My parents wanted me to be a fine arts painter, and I wanted to be a lawyer. So in the end, I won out. But I studied fine arts with a European teacher. She was trained in the Dutch art, and I paint in the style of the old Dutch painters. And so I have a different look than probably Mark will admit most of his customers. And Mark actually listens to me once in a while, which is shocking. Right, Mark?
Yes, and I do, while I do listen to you, I do take a certain amount of joy that in the particular window that you're talking about in your bathroom, there was a comment that arose that you wanted an additional piece of glass and color in a certain portion of it, and I did not think that it would be the best addition to the window, but dealing with someone on your level of art, it was a real interesting discussion because the more involved I can get my clients on their passions and what they want, it gives me a chance to really tailor the window to their desire.
And a brief aside, Simon, Mark hadn't been in the house for a while. And when Mark came over to say hello, the first thing Mark did was march back to this window to take another look at that particular, bathroom, to look at that window because he wanted to see what it looked like years later. True. And that's how committed Mark is to his art. That 8-10 years later, he walks into that bathroom and he remembers that every inch of it, and he wanted to see how it worked out. And that's
wow.
That's commitment.
Oh, that certainly is commitment. And my guess, having spoken to Mark on numerous occasions, is that that's pretty much his work ethic.
Oh yes.
Would you
comment? I'm sorry, Mannie, go ahead. I didn't.
Comment his work ethic? Yes, I would describe him as an obsessive artist. That's the joy. Is that some people go in, gee, I'd like you to sell you this or this might work. Where Mark comes in with this gleam in his eye and a smile and, oh, we can do this and we can artistically create that, and he just really gets your juices going. And by the time he's done, you're just all fired up to do it. And then when you look at his work, he's really got you fired up. So Yeah, his passion, I think, is very, very contagious.
Mark, is this the way you deal with all of your clients?
Mannie is the ideal client because what he's describing is that his passion for his home and his living space, he wants something that's going to enhance it and enliven it, that he's going to enjoy working with. And when I can work with a client like that, it's a real marriage of being able to have a desire to exceed myself and to really produce something. And I don't know that I would call myself a compulsive artist, but I certainly am very much engaged with trying to bring something to someone that they will have long after I'm gone and that might remain in their home after they're gone. So I know part of the design process and part of the selection of the glass is there's a timelessness to what I'm doing. And I want to make sure that if I put my name on something that I've done all that I can and try to exceed myself whenever possible.
Yeah. And Mark, maybe my use of the word compulsive is not correct. The truth is, if you're an artist, you're an artist to the core. I shifted my art to be enjoying art because I couldn't do it for a living. But I've never had a day in my life when I wasn't an artist and I didn't view life through an artist's eyes. And I think that's the way you view your life, right, Mark?
I do, and I realize that, I'm very blessed that I get to make my living doing something that I love to do, and that it's all that I really can do to try to share with people what I think stained glass does, and that is it celebrates light in a way that almost no other art form can. And I think that when we've been talking about glass, working with this glass enables me to paint with light. And painting with light is a very, very unique way of working with a physical medium and bringing in the collaborator of Mother Nature.
A question for actually both of you. Mannie, you mentioned that it's 12 years later and nothing bad has happened. Is there any special maintenance required for a stained glass window?
None. Occasionally we clean it, and actually, because they're higher up, they get very little dust. Usually dust settles on coffee tables and other things, but I've not had any of that problem at all. I mean, they're just maintenance free. And when I say they've held up well, for instance, we had a solid 4-point something with an earthquake about a month ago in Westwood, where I live is really hit you pretty hard. And this house really shook. I mean, it's not an ad for living in Southern California, that's for certain. And it did not budge the Mark's window at all. And there was no damage, no cracks, nothing.
But Mark, one of the larger pieces of work is the fire station, which is just gorgeous. This is Fire Station 78 in Studio City. I mean, were there structural concerns about having a work of stained glass that large?
Fortunately, I worked with the architects and the engineers on the design approach and plan from the inception of the drawings, and we took into consideration the fact that it was a fire station, that it was a highly public space and was going to get a lot of use. So we designed special window frames that were integral into the masonry of the building. And also what we did at the fire station, which I did at Mannie's house and I do quite often, is we do something called an insulated window, where the actual decorative piece of stained glass is encapsulated in an air-sealed unit with one piece of tempered glass on the outside and another piece on the inside, so that the stained glass is never exposed to the elements or damaged, and you just have a smooth surface of glass like you do with ordinary windows. That really does protect the stained glass almost in any condition. And as you can well imagine, in a fire station, with everything that they've got going on, there have never been any issues. And the fact that we were able to plan the insulated glass from the beginning, put it in a place where there's not any real imposition of stress or potential damage.
Wow, that's certainly something new to me. So essentially, you could think of it a bit like a laminate.
Yeah, the best way I can describe it to you in layman's terms, because I've had clients say, well, is what you mean this, is it's like a sandwich. There you have two pieces of bread, which are tempered glass, and then whatever you put in between the bread is the stained glass window. So it creates a 1-inch thick piece of glass that contains the stained glass window in a pocket in between two pieces of tempered, or what is known as safety glass.
Wow.
And Simon, I want to tell you that window is even more beautiful in person than you can imagine. Any of the photos, I've looked at it, and oddly enough, that's both of our own neighborhood. I grew up in Studio City, which is not far from where we are now. It's right next to where NBC is, or I guess it's CBS is there. NBC's now at Universal. And by the way, that was where the home of where John Wayne and Roy Rogers and everybody made all their movies when I was a kid. But it is an extraordinary window. I think the library windows are also extraordinary too. I mean, Mark's work is just brilliant.
Right. A random thought here. I used to work in the glass business, not in anything exotic, to just windshields and side glasses and stuff like that. Glass is heavy, and you're talking about a 1-inch thick pane. These windows must be fairly heavy.
Insulated unit runs approximately 12 to 14 pounds per square foot. So it's not anything too heavy, and it is in that range of weight. Has to do with the number of pieces of glass that are in the stained glass window. The fewer the pieces of glass, the lighter the window weighs, because the real weight in the stained glass window is actually the lead rather than the glass. So the less number of pieces, the less quantity of lead, and therefore lighter weight.
Right. But how on earth? How on earth did you install Mannie's windows? I mean, you must have some pretty decent biceps to muscle around a unit like that.
Oh, in my case, I had plenty of forces on the job, and a long-time employee of mine, Augustine, jumped in and helped, and Mark did a great job of pointing, something he excels at. He could have been a lawyer. If you can point your finger and not work, you're qualified to be a lawyer. And so I think in each case, everybody sort of joins together. That's part of the joy of it. Joining in the installation of that window is, I thought, really special, Mark.
Yeah, because it's sort of the notion that everything is now done. You've baked the cake, you frost it, now you're presenting it on the table. So that installation really, you see how the light now interacts with the glass, and for the very first time, you see a window in what is its full glory, because you have natural light coming through the glass.
Gentlemen, I am looking at the clock and it's winding down. Mannie, do you have any parting thoughts for us?
Yes, I don't think I've ever invested in anything in working in my home that has given me as much joy as a stained glass window. And if anyone who's listening is listening to this show because they have some interest in doing a stained glass window, I cannot suggest it more for a homeowner who would like to have something personal, a little bit different than everyone else.
And that of course, leads the obvious question. Mark, where can people find you?
I have a website online at marklevystudio.com, and there is a site for residential users. It's kind of sweeping the internet called houzz.com, Houzz, and I also have a listing there.
Perfect. I want to thank the pair of you for taking time out to talk to me this morning. And Mark, I'm sure we'll be talking again soon. Until next time, this is Simon Barrett wishing everyone a happy, healthy, and safe day. Till next time, goodbye.